The June 18th meeting of the Mad River Valley Planning District Steering Committee. Our first item of business, adjustments to agenda. I don't believe we have any. We have a pretty full agenda, so I'm going to try and keep us moving quickly. I don't see anyone from the public, so I'm assuming no public comment. That gets us down to acceptance of the minutes. Are there any comments or questions on the minutes from the May 14th meeting? Seeing none, can get a motion to adopt the minutes of the May 14 meeting.
Move to adopt the minutes of the May 14th meeting.
Thank you. And a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Chuck. And all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? And any abstentions? All right. We are good to go on that. Next up, let's flip back to the right tab. Next up is our staff report. So I'll turn over to staff.
All right, so hi, everybody. Happy close to the solstice. The sun is definitely shining right now after it wasn't shining earlier today. Wow, what a transition. So a couple of things I want to highlight. I'm going to start with the wastewater project. So design plans are progressing from 90% toward 100% design. State agencies are reviewing the plan set and anticipating soon all of the anticipated approvals. And once that information is received, the project will be ready to go out to bid. There was a question about easements and timing of easements, and we got some clarity on that recently. And that the easements aren't required before it goes out to bid. It is required before it is contract is signed. So that opens up a little bit more time to get the bids out. So I anticipate that in the next month and a half, again, dependent on those permits from the state. But things are really rolling in that regard. There are some project cost estimate work that's happening, and that's related to a engineering services agreement that is on the agenda for the select board on Monday. I'm putting together an extensive project update for that meeting, and we'll be in attendance for the select board meeting on Monday. So I anticipate a lot of the pieces to really start moving during that meeting. It'll be a project update. It'll be a discussion on the ordinance and things of that sort on Monday the 22nd with the select board. Moving forward, Sugarbush submitted its 2025-2026 annual data. So in compliance with the 1998 Memorandum of Understanding, Sugarbush collects a variety of data and submits it at the beginning of their fiscal year. So that was June 1st, which is really great. Staff we haven't had a chance really to get into any depth in the review of that submittal yet, but will be this month. And Joel from Sugarbush will be presenting at a subsequent steering committee meeting on the data and sort of how Sugarbush is, how things have shaped up in the last year. And then the staff will end up taking that information, and it will be included in our annual data report, which will happen at the end, latter half of the year. A few other things I wanted to mention. There was a Madder Valley Land Conservation Gathering hosted by the Waitsville, Warren, and Faison Conservation Commissions on the 4th of June. I think it's 25. There were like 35 people or so there. I know Dave was there. Anybody else that was there? It was a conversation about loss of forest land and biodiversity, and essentially, does Madder Valley have the tools it needs to be able to conserve land in the long term? And one of the sort of vehicles that was brought up in that conversation was about a local land trust. And that's a very interesting discussion, specifically in regards to the planning district. The planning district, which was started in 1985, had a working relationship with Vermont Land Trust and Friends of Mad River and what was known as the Mad River Valley Conservation Partnership. And the three organizations had an MOU and an arrangement of working together to focus and prioritize conservation projects. And that was at a time, and it was part of the legacy of Vermont Land Trust having an office and an individual in that office who is when I started 18 years ago, and for some time prior to that, focused entirely on the Matter Valley. That was the focal. And then over time, that Vermont Land Trust position was broadened from just the Matter Valley to the region, and then broader and broader and broader. And then COVID happened, and staff changes happened, and that individual, VLT, no longer has had an office since 2020 or 2019 here. And that also really resulted in the end of the conservation partnership. And I see this sort of conversation happening in the sort of trying to address some of the things that the conservation partnership did do. While we didn't have our own land trust, we did have an individual who was building relationships with large landowners and exploring opportunities and leading campaigns for conservation projects. And it's no longer. So at some point, I think could be I anticipate more conversation about this, and I don't really know what the right, that group is. This was the beginning of a dialogue, and I anticipate more, but I just wanted to make sure everyone had some understanding of that dialogue, and understanding of the planning district's role in that world in the past. And I've had a couple like, well, can that happen again? Can the planning district, and like what role could we play? And I don't think we're there yet in that conversation, but we're at the beginning of that. So I just wanted to.
Yeah, and just to speak real quick to the kind of need that
Mhm.
was discussed. One example was BLT and the Trust for Public Lands won't really look at, or they don't want to do conservation deals under 200-ish acres now. And so there was an opportunity in Moortown to do some forest land conservation. And I think there was really no one who would do it. I forget the land trust that said, we'll buy it for you, but we need to transfer it to a local land trust. And obviously there isn't one. So I think that was kind of the genesis of the conversation.
Thank you, Dave. Under recreation, I just wanted to highlight, and it was shared about a week ago or so through their individual newsletters, that the Mad River Path and the Mad River Riders are working to merge into a new organization called the Mad River Trail Alliance. And there's some more detail specifically in the staff report, but that is with the intention for that merger to happen this year. And there are working groups comprised of board members of the different organizations working through all the different details. And it's something that I caught wind of and heard was potentially happening, but it seems like they've moved into a new phase, and it is happening. I guess it's been announced in their newsletters. I also want to highlight the Conservation Recreation Visioning 2.0 group. Franny has taken over from a role that Sam had been playing as a neutral administrator for CRV, which meets quarterly, and 2 official quarterly meetings so far.
Yeah, we had one, I believe, in March and another one earlier in June. We've also had a couple, or we're in the process of planning a couple different working groups to coordinate a resurgence of the trailhead kiosk effort, just to get a better understanding of what has been built, what needs to be built, what needs to be repaired. Since I think it's been about 6 or 7 years since that project got off the ground. And so we are looking towards July to meet again. And I am doing an inventory of all existing kiosks and meeting with the riders in the path to get a better understanding of the lay of the land there.
And just for a little bit more context, the Trailhead Kiosk project was an implementation piece of the MRV Moves Active Transportation Plan that the Planning District led. And then we led the Trailhead Kiosk and Mapping Project, which was the development of approximately 50 trailhead kiosks throughout the watershed. And most of them were installed, and by 2019, the last few were installed in 2020. And the Planning District worked on the MRV Moves Act Transportation Plan and the kiosk project as a major focus over like a 5-year period. And then we exited stage left, and we're backed away from work on that project, and the CRV group and the rec district really stepped up to move forward a lot of that work. And the Path Association specifically has added some kiosks since then. One of the things we didn't that hasn't existed is a really good inventory of exactly what was built and where they are and the condition and so on and so forth. And I see that as a great sort of a way to capstone the work that we have done in the past, and use that as a basis because the group is interested in some of these conversations about maintenance and so on and so forth. And there were some arrangements and agreements at the time that we did the kiosk project about who would maintain and how that would happen, but it never really got codified. It never got put into an MOU. And so there were some pieces of that work that's been sitting out there, and we're recognizing that they need some attention. So that's the attention it's getting. And one of the efforts of that group is the Attitude of Gratitude Code of Ethics project. And there was a kickoff event at Big Picture Theater with a community film and a dialogue, and June 11th. So just a week ago. The Matter Valley Rural Resource Commission's having a summer meeting that Franny is putting together on Monday, bringing representatives from the different 3 historical societies to learn about ongoing projects and the role the Rural Resource Commission can play, but sort of starting with like the lay of the land and what are the different players and what's going on, and what work are they focusing on, as well as what's the right role for the Rural Resource Commission in the short and medium term time frame. 2 things on transportation that I wanted to highlight there. I added a little information on VTrans traffic data management system, interactive web maps, and a variety of just details on trail counts. Sometimes I hear, traffic counts. Folks share like, hey, where can I get data on how many vehicles per day are traveling on Main Street? And we have a little of that information in our data report, but that the VTrans traffic data management system has all the information, and CVRPC has been uploading their traffic counts into that system, and so those are there as well as VTrans counts and other ones of different time periods. So it's a really great resource for understanding traffic volumes and a variety of other related data. Matter of path implementation. So the Active Transportation Plan project, there were 3 applications submitted, led combination of Matter of Path staff, Misha and Jeff, with support from Franny for the Vermont Bicycle and Pedestrian Program on behalf of Waitsfield, Warren, and Middlesex. So implementation of that project through 3 different applications that were really applications of those individual municipalities, but led in this sort of collaborative way. We have a zoning administrators lunch, our latest convening happening next week, which is really great. Having the Plain District hosting at the General Wade House and having the 3 ZAs together to talk and support each other and share information. And second to last thing I wanted to mention was update and discussion on creating a statewide land bank. There's a Vermont Department of Housing Community Development is developing a tactical plan and draft legislation to create a statewide land bank, focusing on addressing housing barriers and specifically bringing idle properties back in productive use via an accountable public entity. And so there's been a group that's been working on that since 2024, and I sat in on I guess it was yesterday at one of their meetings to sort of get an understanding of where that is and how it's moving forward, and it's quite fascinating. But there's more information coming and a tactical plan coming to be delivered to the legislature in November, if my memory serves. And the last thing, and I learned about this today, there's a legislative debrief and community discussion of the Big Picture Theater happening on June 24th, so next week, 6 p.m. So highlights from the most recent session, as well as a dialogue, and all of the Washington County reps are anticipating being there. Cummings and Watson, or senators, will be there, as well as our reps, Dara and Candace, as well as Teresa Wood and Tom Stevens, and they're the Washington and Chittenden district, which is Buells Gore, Huntington, Bolton, and Waterbury. So anticipating a pretty large representation at that community dialogue and debrief next week. So those are all the things I wanted to share. Sorry, I went a little bit long. There's a lot more in here, but happy to answer any questions.
Josh, on the firefighters assistant grant program, you know anything more about that? And I'm just wondering if our folks in the fire department are aware of that.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely gonna flag that for.
Yeah.
Because we-
Is that something that just came up recently?
Yeah, it was something like, I want to say I saw it in CVRPC's newsletter.
It's due next week.
Of course. Because I saw it in the most recent CVRPC newsletter and I was like, oh, that's great.
Not only is it next week, but it's what, next?
It's Monday.
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 Yeah, so we don't even have a select
Yeah,
board meeting
so-
before. We have a
We
select board
just got a
meeting Monday.
request for some additional equipment that they wanted and,
Maybe I'll send it to York tomorrow and. I'll just send it to him. Here you go, York.
if I know you're gonna do that, I won't bother.
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, because York is pretty much running with most of their requests anyway.
Yeah,
That's too bad.
I was also looking at the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Looking at the municipal energy revolving fund reopening, that's good.
Yeah.
So seemed closed for a bit.
All right, I'm gonna ask, because Eric's not here, has anyone used the sunscreen dispenser since it's gone in?
I haven't.
I understand it's there now, so. Well, if anyone does, please report back. I may try. All right, our next item is new business, and we will be starting off with our presentation from the Land Use Review Board from Alex. Thank you for coming tonight. And I'll
Happy to be here.
turn over to you.
Excellent. But I don't know mostly any of you, so could we
Yeah.
just go around the table and
That sounds great.
introduce yourselves? Because I know, Franny, I don't think we've met, but
think we've
I've heard
met.
Josh refer to you so many times that I feel like I know who you are now. So, so I know Josh and Franny, but I kind of want to write down a name around the table of everyone else.
Sure, well, why don't we keep going with Dave?
Dave Babbitt Klein, I'm on the Waitsfield Select Board.
Hey, from Waitsfield. All right.
And Christian Myers,
Oh, right.
CVRPC.
Christian, I.
Don't worry about it. I didn't
I know.
recognize you until you spoke.
We've
It
had-
was the voice.
How many times we've met, but I know who you are.
Yeah, like Zoom buddies. Yeah.
Zoom buddies.
I'm Paul Quinlan and I'm on the Basin Planning Commission.
Okay.
And I'm Chuck Martell and I'm on the select board of Facein.
All right.
I'm Joel Taplin from Warren Select Board. I'm Jim Crafts, Warren Planning Commission. Vince Fewer.
Jonathan Ersprung of the Waitsfield Planning Commission.
Great. All right. Josh told me your names at dinner, and I told him I would probably forget all of that. So thank you for helping me.
No problem.
So yeah, I'm Alex Weinhagen. I'm part of the Act 250 team at the state. We are the Land Use Review Board. It's a little bit of an odd name because there is a board. It's a 5-member board. I am one of those 5 board members that oversees the program. But we have 33 staff members who are also members of the Land Use Review Board team, but they're not on the board. So it's all very confusing, but that's state government for you. So yeah, Josh asked if I would come down and tell you a little bit about what we're doing and how Act 181, that has been much talked about in the last year or so, is playing out and what that means in terms of the Act 250 realm. I understand that Christian was here not too long ago to talk about the regional planning work that is tied to Act 181. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about that, but try to hit some of the other topics that are more Act 250 focused, which is really the guts of what my program is focused on. and hopefully go through this quickly, so then we can have conversation and you can ask questions, and I'm happy to try to answer whatever questions or give you perspective on whatever you might have. So yes, Josh, advance, please.
All right.
And let me start by, yeah, go ahead. Let me start by saying the first part of this is like what is Act 250? Just because it feels like every time we talk to any group, we need to just remind everyone of what Act 250 is and is not. But I do want to say right up front that Brooke Dingeldine is one of our other 5 board members. And she is the board designee that will be working as the shepherd for the Central Vermont Regional Planning Commission's regional plan review, which is yet to come. And she really wanted to be here tonight, but she had a family issue that she couldn't get away from. So she wanted me to extend her apologies and just let you know that as Christian and the Central Vermont Regional Planning Commission move that plan forward, which is your plan, she's the board conduit for you. So if you ever had questions, I mean, you're certainly welcome to touch base with me, but Brooke is sort of assigned to that role. So anyways.
So don't blame me. Go to Brooke.
That's right. For anything you really are happy about, let's talk. Anything else? So yeah, Act 250. Act 250 is over 50 years old. It was enacted in 1970 when literally shit was flowing down the hill on southern Vermont ski areas, and the governor was like, "This is not going to work. We need regulation." And that was literally the genesis of it. It is Vermont's comprehensive development review permitting system. So just like at the local level, there's a development review board or planning commission that might review subdivisions or some more complicated zoning applications. Act 250 is that at the statewide level. So it's we have commissions that review and do work that's very similar to what a municipal development review board does. But it's been around longer than most towns have had planning because of what happened in the late 60s and then led to the enactment in 1970. This is the purpose statement for Act 250 that's outlined in statute. Act 181 that was passed a couple of years ago that we'll talk about some more updated this. And so you can advance, Josh. You'll see that Act 250 is really 2 sides of a coin. It's there to ensure that we have vibrant communities and that we have economic development. Some people would argue that's not what Act 250 is about. It actually is. But the other side of that coin is to make sure that development and economic vibrancy doesn't come at the expense of our natural resources and our landscape. And so it's a balancing act between trying to promote good development and economic growth and making sure our landscape remains intact. Go ahead, Josh. So very quickly, some of you are probably familiar with this. Act 250 is a permitting process for the whole state that actually captures very little of the development that happens in the state because it has jurisdictional triggers that are very much focused on larger development. So the person who wants to put up a new barn on in their backyard, add a garage, or even just build a house is likely not going to be getting an Act 250 permit from my agency. These are the triggers. It's designed to trigger for the subdivision, creating 6 or more lots in a town without zoning, 10 or more lots in a town with zoning, or any project that creates more than 10 or more housing units. And it also covers development for commercial industrial purposes on parcels over an acre in municipalities that don't have zoning, or over 10 acres in municipalities that do have zoning. So it's an odd jurisdictional framework, if you ask me. It's very clear on the number of housing units or lots, but on commercial development, it has nothing to do with the scale of the development. It has everything to do with the size of the lot that the development is on. Weird, but that's what it is. Act 250 has lots of exemptions in it. It's been around for a long time. It's been a bit of a lightning rod for 55 years. And so written into statute, there are exemptions for farming, for logging. This is all below 2,500 feet. And for certain housing projects, which I'll get into, in certain exemption areas, and a whole host of other things, that are exempt from Act 250. The focus really is above 2,500 feet, most development is jurisdictional. And larger projects, either residential or commercial, is jurisdictional. Dave, did you have a?
Oh, just what's the 5 miles, man?
Oh, good question. Yeah, so these jurisdictional triggers are not forever. So if you're doing 9 housing units here in Waitsfield and you want to do one more next year in a different project, that one unit will now trigger Act 250. But the additive nature of it has to be within 5 miles or within 5 years.
Excellent.
If you wait, you do 9 units today and you wait 5 years and then do 9 more units, you're at 18, but it's outside of that time horizon, you don't trigger Act 250.
In the entirety of the project, even though it's in 2 different locations, all has the same permit. Like the Act 250
Right,
permit
right.
applies to the
It-
totality of the
it
development.
speaks, the prior development that, yeah.
Sucks it up.
Yes, Act 250 is really good about sucking up jurisdiction. Yeah, we can talk more about that. Go ahead, Josh. So, Act 250 is actually very simple if you just look at the 10 criteria. And it makes a lot of sense, right? Larger development projects are going to have more impacts on the land and the communities in which they are located. And so these are the 10 criteria, we've had them since the beginning of Act 250, that say, let's make sure that these developments are not gonna have adverse impacts on our water supply, on soil erosion. Let's make sure it's not gonna overwhelm the school system by putting in 100, housing unit project in a community whose school is at capacity. Wildlife habitat and the like. So these are the 10 criteria that all Act 250 projects are reviewed against. The devil's of course in the details. There are actually 32 sub-criteria within those 10 criteria, so it does get a little complicated. But these are the 10 that are the basis of the review. Go ahead, Josh. It is a citizen-based review process, but it is different from what happens with municipal level review, and I'll explain why in a moment. But just to make it clear, we have 9 district commissions, sort of like development review boards, across the state, divided up into these districts. You folks are in District 5 in Washington County. And the District 5 District Commission are 3 commissioners that are appointed by the governor. I, as a land use review board member, don't appoint them. I don't have any power over them. The governor appoints them. They're an sort of independent working body. And their job is to review applications based on statute and our rules, which my board does create, and try to render legally valid decisions on those permits. So that's how the process works. We have these volunteer commissions. We invite community members into those commission meetings when major projects at least are being reviewed. Each of those commissions has a singular staff person who helps get their work done. And the types of Act 250 permit applications there are 3. And a lot of people don't fully understand this. Most people read about Act 250 in the newspaper when a project has blown up. And, it's mired in controversy. There's an appeal by a neighbor and it's hung up for a year and it's costed somebody lots of money. And that's what Act 250 is to a lot of folks. And as you'll see in a moment in the future slides, that's actually not what Act 250 is. But there are 3 types of applications. Major projects, minor projects, and administrative amendments. And major projects are what you think of as an Act 250 project. So they're significant and they're going to have a public hearing. Neighbors are going to probably come out and at least learn about it, if not have comments on it. And the district commission will issue a decision. Very few are appealed, but they could be. There's usually a site visit involved. Minor projects are actually the bread and butter of Act 250. And for minor projects, there is no public hearing. There are no angry neighbors. And the first thing that people see is a draft approval. That's what's circulated to interested parties and neighbors with a question of, did we miss something? If not, we're going to approve this thing. If you think we did, we'll hold a hearing. That's what a minor project is. And then there are administrative amendments, which are exactly what they sound like. Simple changes to existing decisions that don't really impact the criteria or natural resource protection, but need to be made for administrative reasons. So go ahead and flip to the next one, Josh. These are our permitting by the numbers, generally 350 to 400 permits, permit decisions issued each year. About 5% of those are majors, which means they have a hearing. 95% of them don't. You can see about 0.2% are denied on any given year. Last year, there weren't any denials. And you can see the number of decisions generally appealed each year is small. In addition to the district commission's work and issuing decisions, the district coordinators, the actual staff members who serve those district commissions, are legally charged with providing something called a jurisdictional opinion. So when a Vermonter's like, hey, I want to do this project, do I need a permit for that? An Act 250 permit? Our district coordinators are their resource, and they will issue a legally binding opinion on whether that project triggers the need for an Act 250 permit. We do about 200 of those a year, as well as the actual decisions. Go ahead to the next one, Josh.
So
So,
can I pause you for?
yeah, go
I might have just been spacing out, and I was, not on that page either. What's the define major and minor?
Yeah, so a major project is one that is going to have some sort of substantial impact
Define substantial.
under the criteria. It's a good question.
I can play this game all day.
It's a bit subjective in my mind. It's a judgment call on the part of the 3 district commissioners to
Right.
say, I think this project.
It's a case by case basis.
It's definitely
There's not a
case-by-case.
right line test.
There's not.
Between what's major and.
How it works is, once the project is under active jurisdiction, somehow it gets into the application goes in, and then it's decided
Yeah,
if
so
it's major or
You
minor.
guys look
The
at.
application comes into our coordinator, who's a
Yeah.
full-time staff person. They make sure it's complete. And then they share it with the district commission and say, I think this is a minor, I think this is a major, and the district commission decides, you're right, you're wrong.
Oh.
And it's based on impact or perceived impact, really.
Interesting.
But if you flip to the next one, I think this is what, sorry, the next one, yes. This is what I found instructive. So I didn't explain this. I'm actually new to the Act 250 program, if you didn't gather that yet. I worked as a municipal planner in the town of Heinsberg for 22 years. And was, when the Land Use Review Board was created last year for the first time, the governor was stupid enough to appoint me. So I'm on the board, but I'm new to the Act 250 program. I'm not, I don't have a lot of institutional knowledge. I'm gaining that. So this surprised me when I saw our own annual report for 2025. This is a breakdown of the actual decisions that we've issued each calendar year over the last 5 years. And if you just look at the far right-hand column, which is 2025 calendar year, you'll see that we issued 384 decisions. This is just our district commissions, actual applications, they had to make a decision. Of that 384, 142, working our way upward on the chart, were administrative amendments, right? They don't really count. They're like minor name changes and, oddball things, so don't worry about them. But look at the next column up in blue. Minors represented 226 of the remaining permit decisions. And remember, minor applications, a person works with their coordinator, makes an application, and the district commission says, this is a no-brainer. There's not much impact. We don't think we need a hearing. And so all we're gonna do is draft an approval and circulate it to the neighbors and any interested parties. And if nobody says boo, we're just approving it. That is what Act 250 is, just by the numbers. That's the vast majority of Act 250 permits. There are some, as you can see, that started as a minor. Somebody said, I think this needs a hearing. There were 5 of those last year. So they got a hearing. An interested party, a neighbor.
Could be a regional planning commission.
Could be a regional planning commission, could be the Agency of Natural Resources.
Be somebody walking down the street.
Could be a neighbor. Yep. And 11 out of the 384, just the district commission said, yep, these are big potato projects. We're gonna have a hearing. So 16 of the 384 had a hearing and had the potential to have a neighbor say something about it. 226 just got approved.
Do those minor decisions include, you got your application, it's a minor project? No?
Yes,
Okay,
except we didn't have any no's last year.
okay, right.
Like, we just don't say no very often.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
And these
Point, it
numbers
just
are
says
state level?
application decisions. and they
Yes.
say
Yes, they're not the
Application
regional.
approval.
Yeah.
No no's last year, right?
right.
You
Now,
need another, you need another column, you need to break that down further, should
What,
be
what do you wanna see?
yes and no's.
Just that it was all yeses.
Application approval, application decline.
Yeah, well, in 2025, they were all yeses. What we really need is another row
And what's
that
the point of
says,
this thing?
that says applications withdrawn. Or
Okay.
That was my next
applications,
question.
or applications greatly altered in order to get the approval. Because we've heard this feedback this year from rural Vermonters who are like, yeah, we hear these statistics that most people get approved and it doesn't take too awful long and there aren't very many appeals, but you guys aren't telling the full story. Like, what about those people that never apply because they're afraid of what the neighbors are gonna do? Or what about those people that apply and just have to withdraw because, you know, you're making them hire an engineer, it's costing way too much money. And those are valid issues, and I think we should report on some of that. But just like at the local level, as I imagine all of you know, the purpose of a development review system at any scale is to make sure that the framework that the community has established as like, these are the rules of the road, are being consistently applied to everybody in that community and the development that happens there. And so what we like to think at the Act 250 level is, yeah, we understand people think, you know, the review can be kind of substantive and maybe a little scary at times. But the purpose of the review is to get you to yes. But you may need to change your design a little bit in order to make sure that wetland over there doesn't get destroyed. Or that the traffic impact from your 150,000 square foot warehouse like is going to be adequately managed with a light improvement at that intersection over there. And so, yeah, most projects get approved, but I would say most projects get approved and get improved as a part of it because of the conversation that's happening, either with our staff or through a public hearing process with the commission and other interested parties. That's rose-colored glasses, but you know, I'm here as a member of the program.
No,
So
it's interesting, cause that never dawned on me. So you don't get a lot of people that just kind of like come to you and just like, here you go, like, here's, like, they have no experience with Act 250, or they have no idea what they're doing, and they come to you and it's just a hot mess, and you just say, no, that seldom happens.
so what my
Cause they've done their homework, they've got their engineer, they've got their reports.
what my coordinators would say, I'm gonna speak for them, is actually, yes, they do see some hot messes, but not a lot. And the hot messes that they see, they help them clean them up
Right.
so that they can get to yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're right, as the numbers show, like we generally don't deny permits. We work with people to get them to a place where we can say yes.
Yeah, I'd be curious, like the scale of the number of withdrawn applications. You obviously can't
Yeah,
measure I'm too scared to apply.
yeah.
You can't measure that.
But withdrawing would be a good one, and I wanna advocate that we start including that, because I don't know the number.
Yeah,
I
I guess,
have no
is
idea.
it 10, is it 50?
Yeah.
Is it
I don't know,
Or stalled.
stalled?
Right.
Yeah,
yeah,
And I would imagine that the sort of evolution of an application from a hot mess to a, right? That seems
No,
like,
that's a legal term.
that seems like a good place to start, to a yes. Like, I can imagine that happens through the hearing process and through the dialogue, which was primarily majors, I'm guessing. How much of that happens in the minor,
there's a lot of.
Can you
pockets
explain-
in minor as
explain how
well.
much dialogue happens in the minor application
Yes,
as well?
so just like at the municipal level, in the minor ones, folks who come in who don't have experience with the program need help, and so that's what our district coordinators do. So each district, in your district, it's Susan Baird, who's out of our Montpelier office.
They walk people right through it.
That's their job. Their job is to be a shepherd and to help applicants get through the process. But also to be honest with applicants and say like, I gotta tell you, like, we have this criteria and I think this design is not going to meet it. You probably need to do a redesign here. And it's really hard to quantify how often that happens, but I know it does. Certainly happened in Heinsberg at the municipal level when I worked there in development review. We would see hot messes all the time. And we like to say that most times landowners walked out of our office at the municipal level, you know, with a map and some level of clarity about what they can actually do and how to get there.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of spirit I'm trying to bring to the Act 250 program at least. But go ahead, Josh. Let's,
Okay, can I ask one more question?
yeah.
I know you're trying to make progress, but I'm gonna slow you down. Do you know what percentage, let's use the calendar year 2025, the applications are brand new applications versus an application related to an existing Act 250?
That's a really good question. I don't know the answer off the top of my
Because my
head.
understanding is once you're under jurisdiction, the property is always under jurisdiction.
Yes, so I don't know the answer, but I'm gonna just go ahead and guess that, it's a good percentage of these. It's a good percentage of these that are, revisions to existing Act 250 permits. As opposed to a brand new project on a parcel of land that has no existing Act 250 jurisdiction. And that is a function of Act 250 that everybody should be aware of and is part of the PR image, that problem that we have is that, once a property triggers Act 250 for any type of development, every other development on that property going forward forever is jurisdictional and requires an Act 250 permit amendment.
Even if it's a different type of project that wouldn't have triggered it in the.
Yes. Yeah.
What's the purpose?
Giant sucking sound.
Yeah, honestly, I'm not sure. I know that, from my municipal experience that, when you do, for example, a subdivision of a property, and you go through review, later on, when somebody wants to re-subdivide one of those lots and maybe divide it one more time, we also at the municipal level would say, well, we need to look back and make sure that what you're doing today is consistent with that original approval. I see it the same way here, but yeah, there are times when what triggers the need for a permit amendment makes me scratch my head. So, yeah, something for us to, work on.
I have two more questions, but you might get to them, and so you can just say, I'll get to them. Approximately how much does it cost to file a solid application? Like what
Yeah,
services do you need to purchase? I know it depends on project size, but like a range, and then how long does it take?
yeah,
Yes.
so I'll speak to them now because I don't have slides on those.
Okay.
On the cost, it's about $7 per $1,000 of construction costs.
Okay.
So that's just a rough number, that you can use to sort of calculate that. Well, we've done some numbers that we put up. We have a frequently asked questions, document that we put up during the Act 181 hoorah. And, we gave some examples of like you're putting in a mobile home. It costs you $100,000. Here's what the permit cost is. You're putting in a $500,000 house. Here's what the permit cost is. The problem is that the permit cost is the hard cost, and all of the soft costs that you might need to spend money on, I can't quantify.
Right.
So for a minor project, somebody who's going to be opening up a small commercial operation on a 2-acre lot in a town that has no zoning, and therefore, because it's over 1 acre of land and it's a commercial, small, home-based commercial operation, they're gonna need an Act 250 permit. That kind of project is unlikely to require much in the way of engineering, and so those soft costs will be small. Whereas somebody doing a 15-lot subdivision who's got a whole bunch of stormwater control they have to do, and maybe there's some wetland mitigation, and of course, there's all their wastewater design, those soft costs are much higher.
Yeah.
And what complicates the calculation is, most of those soft costs they're going to have to spend anyways. Even if Alex said, magic wand, you don't need an Act 250 permit, they're still gonna make
Right.
those costs, right? They have to have a designed septic system. They can't just put an oil drum in the ground and pipe their septic to it. So it's hard to break that out.
So there's not that many soft costs that are like
Act 250
directly
specific.
related to complying with Act 250.
Historic preservation analysis is very much an Act 250 specific soft cost, that doesn't really trigger anywhere else. Yikes, there was one other.
I was thinking like a traffic study, which may or may not be required at the local level, but is likely more required in Act 250. That's like a maybe.
Stormwater, you have to get that anyway.
You need a some.
Trigger no matter what, whether you're in Act 250 or not, especially with the state's new jurisdictional trigger for state stormwater permits, which is just a half an acre of new impervious. Yeah, so.
Thanks, it's very helpful.
Yeah, and in terms of time horizon, this is in our annual report, so I can point you there. What I want to say is that for minors, the average is about 3 months, 92 days, something like that. And the median is 42 days, because we have some projects that do get mired and they skew the average, so. What I like to tell people is, if you're coming in, if it's a minor project and it goes through the minor permitting process, budget 3 months, and that's what it's probably gonna take you to get through an Act 250 permit. So, Act 181, Act 181 passed in 2024. By the way, Act 250 is a very boring name. It should be called something else. That's the whole program, sort of. And the name never changed from when the act number, when it passed in 1970. That's why we call it Act 250, because in 1970, Act, 250 was this big law. So anyways, we still call it that.
Why
Act
are we
1
going backwards? Why aren't we up to the 300 or 400?
Yeah, good question, because every year when the legislature introduces over 700, proposed bills, and some number of those become laws, they renumber them from one.
So this is Act 181, 2024.
Exactly.
So like if
Versus
an
Act
important, if an important
250 of
bill in a
1970.
session is number 250, they're like, we
Yeah.
can't use that one.
I didn't-
We have
They
to
might
change.
say that, yeah, it's kind of like.
Should be like
Look,
retiring
you
it back.
you don't have
Yeah.
413s on hotels anywhere, because, yeah, it could be the same.
Is it like a jersey that they put up in the
Yeah,
rafters,
like-
like
yeah,
Act 250?
Good control numbers are retired.
Patriots ever gonna wear 12?
They've retired it.
So Act 181 is a much less significant law from the standpoint of history. It feels like it's really important now, but in 25 years, I don't think we'll be talking about it. But it passed in 2024, and it was meant to be a comprehensive reform or modernization of Act 250. We could talk for hours more about whether it actually was that. And I was involved a little bit from the Vermont Planners Association and trying to advocate for what it should be, and what it turned into was not that. But in any case, what it did in 2024 was it dissolved the Natural Resources Board. So the board that oversaw the Act 250 program for many years was called the Natural Resources Board. It had one full-time chairperson who was paid, and then it had volunteers too, I think at the time it was dissolved, who received like per diems and basically did very little. It was sort of a one chairperson run board. And that board was responsible for overseeing Act 250. So Act 181 said, let's get rid of that board. Let's install a 5-member professional level board, all full-time people who will actually, do work and bring this program into the modern era. And in addition to that administrative sort of governance function, it tried to do a bunch of the things you see on this slide. It tried to initiate a new type of Act 250 jurisdiction based on location, not on size of project, but actually where the project is. These are the tiers. It tried to say, let's have consistency with our regional planning. Let's have municipal plans talk to regional plans, talk to state level planning, and let's have regional plans be the nexus for that. And let's have them help decide where Act 250 is important and where maybe it isn't. And then it also said, let's build more housing, for crying out loud. We're in a housing crisis. Let's get on that, and let's get Act 250 out of the way in places where we want to greenlight housing construction. And so in addition to permanent exemption areas based on these locations, which I'll talk about, it had implemented these interim Act 250 exemptions for a specified period of time. And it helped reform the state designation program. I won't go into a lot of detail right now. I've got a couple slides on this on the end. So go ahead, Josh. This is what Act 181 was looking to do. As I said, from a governance standpoint, it gave me my job. So, hey, thanks, legislature. You created a 5-member board, and I got to be on it. So hooray for that. Our board is committed to not only like rolling out what the legislature said we have to do for modernizing Act 250, but we're also committed to modernizing sort of how it works. I don't know about all of you, but rules and bylaws and zoning regulations, I think they need regular attention, and many of them, you know, have the potential to collapse under their own weight, because a lot of them, you know, started in the seventies, and then there's just, people just added stuff to it over time. Act 250 is not entirely different, and, the rules that govern how our district commissions make decisions have not been updated in over a decade. So our board is committed to taking that on as soon as we can get through the stuff that the legislature said we have to do in the first year or two. So we're getting there. All right, so with that caveat, tiers. This is the location-based jurisdiction that Act 181 wanted us to create. It wanted us to say, where is there not going to be any Act 250 jurisdiction, total green light for development as far as state Act 250 level permitting. Those are the tier 1A areas. Where do we want to have limited exemptions? Those are the tier 1B areas. Where do we want to sort of have the status quo? And where do we want to enhance jurisdiction and have more Act 250 review of potentially smaller projects, because the areas that we're talking about are so sensitive. Those are the tier 3 areas. I imagine I don't need to tell you that this changed substantially this year. The legislature just repealed tier 2 and tier 3. The governor signed that bill 2 days ago. So it's officially law now. So I'm not going to talk to you about tier 3 because it doesn't exist anymore. And tier 2 doesn't exist anymore either. So the very flashpoint issues that have come up this year around tier 3 and the road rule are gone. Tier 1 remains. So where we are going to limit Act 250 permitting, that remains. And it's very much tied to what Christian and the regional planning commissions are doing in mapping. And I'll talk more about that in a second. But does anybody have any questions about that? Because it's a pretty big change. And I imagine you were hearing a fair amount from community members over the last 6 months or so about that.
Yeah, slightly.
Yeah.
So
Sorry about
in the more rural areas, I mean, Facein was sort of the inclusive
Yeah.
epicenter of the protests. Seemed.
Yeah, I think Rural Vermont Rising was the name given to the Facebook group that, you know, sprang up around this thing. And yeah, definitely seemed to be a rural Vermont.
And towns like us who are very mountainous, and we're at the headwater of so many streams coming in, and
Yeah.
all that pointed to more regulations
Yeah.
for Facein.
Yeah.
And much of the valley, I guess.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there was a lot of conversation.
Trust me, I got a lot of phone calls and had a lot of conversations too. Yep.
The tagline, repeal half of Act 181 didn't have the same ring, so.
Right. That's easier to say repeal Act 181. Yeah. Well, so that half of it did get repealed.
Is there any practical impact to repealing tier 2? I mean, if that's basically the status quo, does it mean anything to repeal it, or?
Well, what it really was the road rule.
Okay.
So-
So those were in tier 2.
Tier 2 was status quo, but also we're
But add
gonna
in the-
apply the road rule. And so the road rule got repealed and now it's just, status quo.
Okay.
Go ahead to the next. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, one question that may already be in your slide deck, so you can come back to it, is circling back to some of your earlier conversations, how are Act 250 permits treated in tier 1?
Existing activity
Existing.
permits,
Key
right?
line.
It depends. For communities like these 3, which are probably never gonna have a tier 1A area, but hopefully we'll have tier 1B. There's no change. So if you're in a tier 1B area, you know, your little village area or some growth area around it, housing projects of 50 or fewer units would be exempt from Act 250. But any existing Act 250 permitting would remain, and sort of the administration of those permits would remain with my agency.
Are they excluded from the exemptions for 50 units or fewer?
They're not. So it's a good question. What would happen is if you're on a parcel that's subject to an Act 250 permit and you're proposing a new housing project of 50 or fewer units, my understanding is that would be exempt. the new project.
Yeah.
And that the existing Act 250 permit and its conditions would still remain. And it would be my agency's job to continue to, administer that legacy permit. But let me check with my attorneys on that to make sure I just didn't put my foot in my mouth.
And I mean,
because-
just for argument's sake, then these would be parcels that are like adjacent to one another and just like, just say for instance, it could be. There could be no real tangible differences between the two projects. And one would remain under the Act 250,
Because it has an existing permit from the
right, and
past.
right next door, because we passed a new law that makes it,
Yes,
that's ridiculous.
so that's the difference between tier 1A and tier 1B.
It's so Vermont.
In tier 1A, complete exemption. Act 250 permitting basically just goes away. The legacy Act 250 permits from the past still exist, but they get absorbed into whatever municipal permits are issued on a particular property at the time that the municipality issues those permits, and they sort of become municipal permits then. But yeah, you're right, it is a very Vermont solution. It's sort of like, I'm afraid to go all the way, so I'm gonna create a half measure, and we're gonna call it tier 1B. It's cleanest when you think of just a 10-acre parcel, or let's say a 1-acre parcel. I have a 1-acre parcel. It's never had any Act 250 permitting. There's nothing on it, and I want to put 35 houses on it. And I'm in a tier 1B area, you're exempt. No need for Act 250 permit. Go to the town, get your permitting, get your state A&R permitting, you're good to go. It becomes more complicated in Christian's example.
Yeah, well, when you already have that existing permit, so you might have like a box store. Just one valley.
Right.
In a tier 1A area that has traffic restraints as part of their permit, to Act 250 permit, can they build a second box store if it uses the same driveway and impacts, say, the number of cars going through an intersection?
Yeah, so we're a little bit out of the Mad River.
No, I know,
But just
I tried to find a clear example.
But just to answer it,
You know something we don't know?
the answer is yes. So they've got a box store at 75,000 square feet. It's subject to an existing Act 250 permit. And they're like, hey, we got leftover land. We're gonna build another box store next to it. If it's a tier 1A area, that new box store would be fully exempt from Act 250. But when the municipality went to give a permit to that new box store, they would have to take the existing Act 250 permit conditions from the old box store and decide which ones are going to remain. And then they get to decide as a municipality how to tweak them.
Wow. Okay, so even with the passage of 225 and the lure maintaining all existing permits, the town still has to make that decision locally.
Yes, when a
Okay.
new development project is proposed on a property that has an existing Act 250 permit, the municipality gets full authority over that existing Act 250 permit and gets to decide which of those conditions go away.
Okay.
Yeah.
So actually that does.
It's
Clean it up.
that part's not bad, because
One-
it vests the municipality with that authority, but again,
Okay.
yeah, I don't think you're gonna see
That
any
makes-
tier 1A areas in the Mad
It
River
would be
Valley,
1B question.
maybe tier 1B, and so that's a little more relevant.
So outside of tier 1A and tier 1B, every area outside of that, the status quo of
Correct.
Act 250, the way it's been is the way it is.
Correct.
And in tier 1A and tier 1B, it's essentially the reduction of
Yes.
Act 250 jurisdiction. So
So
there
yeah.
is no enhanced Act 250 jurisdiction as a result of the repeal.
Correct. Yes, there's no jurisdictional expansion thanks to the repeal.
But the base status quo is still the
Yes.
status quo.
Yep. So go ahead and advance.
Yep.
And happy to have a conversation through the slides, so keep asking questions, but it'll take us longer. So this is a little bit of a rehash of what Christian probably talked to you about. So again, the idea behind Act 181, besides location-based tiers that sort of self-destructed, was to have these planning systems come together and to have regional plans become the nexus, right, between what a municipality is planning for, what the state is hoping for, and what our goals are, and how you put those together regionally. And so regional plans become much more important. And our job as the Land Use Review Board is to, for the first time, review them. So previously, regional planning commissions would adopt regional plans And that was the end of the process. There was no independent body that had oversight over that. There was no one who passed judgment on whether that regional plan actually met state statutory requirements. And now there is. So, Christian and his fellow executive directors and regional planning commissioners have to come to us and say, this is what we developed, in partnership with our municipalities. Does it pass muster? And we have a very involved process to go through that review.
Meet the new boss.
So, so that's a pretty substantive piece to what Act 181 did. And it's maybe for planning nerds, but I am one, so, it's important. Go on to the next one, Josh. Yeah, so, you gotta break it out in order to keep it straight. So again, getting back to why the regional plan matters, it is the future land use maps that are part of the regional plan that will determine the areas that are eligible for these tier 1 exemptions from Act 250. So like if you are a firm believer that Act 250 needs to get out of the way in well-planned areas, it's really important that you're engaged in the regional plan future land use mapping, because it's only those 4 types within the future land use types, the downtown centers, village centers, planned growth areas, and village areas, that will be eligible for the tier 1 exemptions.
Can't believe they can't come up with something other than flu maps.
Well, they also decided to call the new organizing function of Act 250 and the board blurb.
Yeah.
So, yeah, my other half at home tells me every day, like, how come they didn't come up with a better acronym? I'm like, it was there before I got there.
Good acronyms you take.
Learn in the flu.
The blurb and the flu. So yeah, go ahead, Josh. So this is just an example of our map viewer. If you're into this sort of planning nerdery, which you should be, you are all into this. This is our website, and you can look at the future land use maps for actually all of the regional planning commissions. There are 11 of them across the state, with one exception. They're all up there. Some of them are in final form, some of them are draft, but you can sort of see how they match together. This happens to be in the St. Albans area, with those sort of, well, I'll tell you about the colors in a minute, but villages and downtowns in the pinks, and greens are more of the ag forest areas. And the like. There's only one regional area that's not on the map yet.
Which one?
I don't know.
We got our own map. We've got it. Next week, you'll see it. Yeah.
Central Vermont decided that they wanted to come last, so it'd be the best and the most.
Caboose. Everybody likes the caboose.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool,
So
it's red.
it's all good. We're so underwater right now, Christian. We're happy that you're still working on it.
That makes a lot of sense.
So this is just an outline of how these various future land use area categories work together and the color coding that we use for them. And it's a lot to look at, so I won't spend too long on this slide except to reiterate that the tier 1 areas down at the bottom with regard to my program, Act 250, are those 4 categories: downtown centers, village centers, planned growth areas, and village areas. So you want those. If you want Act 250 relief or exemption, you want those, and you want them to be as substantive as the statute and your municipal plans will allow you to make them.
And I'm just gonna go back to the map real quickly, because those are the colors that
Yes,
connect to this.
yes, when you look at the map and you look at this next slide, the colors should match. Great. So, yeah, go ahead, the next one. We've actually talked about this, but it's just on the screen, the tier 1B areas are provide an Act 250 exemption for housing projects of 50 or fewer units. All of the regional plans are going to be approved by the end of this calendar year. So we're going to know where presumably all of the tier 1B areas are, because once the regional plan is approved, all of the tier 1B areas that they have identified will be approved at the same time. So those exemptions, these are permanent Act 250 exemptions at the 1B level, will all go into effect by the end of the year. But we are very aware that many municipalities need more time to meet the requirements to get the tier 1B exemptions. And so we don't anticipate full uptake of these tier 1B areas until probably 2028. So we'll have the first pass at the end of this year, and then those municipalities that are interested will be working with the regional planning commissions to update their zoning or add subdivision regulations that they don't have, but you need to have in order to be eligible. So we think, 2028 is when we'll have a better picture of just where all these Act 250 exemption areas are. And tier 1A, again, not so relevant for your 3-town district, but we won't start seeing applications for that full exemption until the related regional plan is approved. And we're anticipating those in the municipalities that you could probably guess, right? South Burlington, Rutland, St. Albans, St. Johnsbury. These are cities that are chomping at the bit to get full Act 250 exemption for their urban cores. Go ahead to the next one, Josh. I will breeze through this. These are the interim housing exemptions. As I said, we're not gonna have these permanent tier 1 exemptions until the end of the year and a bit beyond. So the legislature said, we need housing now, so let's put some interim exemptions in that developers can take advantage of right now. And so any place where there's a designated village center, or a downtown area, and there's a bunch of other interim exemption areas, developers can get limited Act 250 exemptions through, this says 2027, it's actually 2028, as now amended with S 325 that the governor signed the other day.
And
So-
is that starting of the project or finishing of the project?
That's a really good question. It's actually tied to construction. So it is start of construction.
Okay, so like, it's gotta go pretty
You
quickly.
gotta get on it. Yes, you gotta get on it, which is why extending it by another year was a good thing. The governor wanted it extended to 2030. But the legislature decided 2028 and he agreed. Go ahead, next one,
And both
Josh.
Waitsfield and Warren have designated village centers. And so all that information is available, like the map of those approved things on the atlas.
Yes, on our Act 250 website, we have an interim exemptions map, which you'll see a picture of if you go forward.
Sorry,
So-
I jumped ahead.
There's the website, shows you where these interim exemptions are. This has been up on our website since 2024, when Act 181 first went into effect. This is just St. Johnsbury. It shows you where their existing downtown designation and neighborhood development area designation is. And you can see that there's an exemption area that's buffered out around them. Sorry, should have done Waitsfield, but this was the last one I did. So yeah, go ahead to the next one. This is an example of what the interim temporary exemption looks like, sort of, rough, just a buffer versus what a future permanent exemption is likely to look like in St. Johnsbury area based on municipal mapping and then what ends up in the regional plan, future land use areas. Go ahead. Just so you know, Act 250 exemptions are not the only benefit that accrues to these future land use areas. And the state for many years has had limited benefits for communities that went out and got a village center designation like Waitsfield has. And Act 181 said, let's reform that, let's make it easier. You will no longer have to apply for those designations. You just have to get the regional planning map, the future land use map, to include the right areas. And if you're in one of these areas, downtown center, village center, on the future land use map, you automatically get these designations. And they're broken into centers and neighborhoods, as you might imagine, surround centers. So go ahead, Josh, to the next one. So the designation program has been around for a while. These are some of the benefits that extend to designated village centers that will continue under the new program. And any community that has a legacy village center like Waitsfield will enter into this new system at what they call a step 2, sort of a middle level of benefit. And it's automatic, like, again, no application, you get it, and then you have these benefits. The downtown and village tax credit is one of the more significant benefits. And what it helped do in my old community of Heinsberg was allow commercial property owners tax credits to make major improvements to their buildings, commercial or mixed use buildings. So we had falling down buildings in Heinsberg that turned into like historic preservation, rejuvenated in part because of this tax credit and other funding they were able to bring to bear. But it also helps pay for ADA accessibility improvements and the like. So the tax credit piece of this that the designation opens up for landowners within the designation areas is really important. But then it has all these other benefits too, in terms of priority for state funding grants and the like. So sorry, that was a long presentation. This is the last slide, or second to last, promise. These are the changes, some of the changes that the governor just signed into law a couple days ago. This was S 325. The most significant being the repeal of tier 3 and the road rule. But extending those interim housing exemptions to 2028 by 1 year. And fixing this technical problem with the tier 1A areas where communities are like, no, thanks, none of us are gonna apply for that because you're gonna make us administer the legacy Act 250 permits within our tier 1A areas. The moment that we get the designation, even before the project has changed at all. And so the legislature fixed that, so my agency will continue to do that work until a municipality is sort of ready. It also changed the accessory on farm business exemption from Act 250. But in a real Vermont way, it doesn't do it until July of next year, so the legislature can change their mind next year if they want. So I don't know if accessory on farm businesses are a thing down here, but they've had, when they were first created, they really opened up an opportunity for rural landowners to do more. Farmers to do more with their property than just farm. And they told municipalities, you must allow this to happen. Like you have to say, you have to let it happen. You can make it go through a site plan review, but it has to happen across all of Vermont. So that was a good thing. They didn't quite understand how to get those same farmers out of Act 250 review for the same types of projects. And they've been debating it ever since they started this thing 10 years ago or so when accessory on farm businesses came in. So in any case, long story short, events, weddings, concerts, were pretty controversial as accessory on farm businesses and were not afforded an exemption from Act 250, the way that maybe an on-farm tasting room would be. And so this year, they've extended this Act 250 exemption to those events. And, but they're not sure about it, so they're not making it take effect until July of next year.
So bring that local, would that be something like Hartshorn, like having those, driving the kids around and?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think he's specifically talking about events in particular, so
Okay.
like weddings
Weddings.
and those kinds of events.
Not little businesses that are.
The little businesses were addressed a handful of years ago.
Right.
So that was an issue about up to 10 years ago.
And they addressed it at the municipal level and they provided an Act 250 exemption for them too. So they were sort of taken care of. But then you have the farmers like, I got this great barn. I use it for storage, but in the summertime, I clear it out, I clean it up, and we have concerts.
Yeah.
And the community loves it. We have
Let's do more of those.
burger nights and like, it's great, but community vitality. Those have not been exempt from Act 250 and the farmers have been like, really? You're gonna make me get an Act 250 permit for this? So that's what this is seeking to change, is to say, yeah, maybe you can get an exemption from that, but give us a year to figure it out. And then there were several other technical changes regarding regional plans that Christian was probably very interested in, but I won't go into great detail on.
Oh.
Yeah, in S 325. So, sorry, long-winded, that was it. This is me, this is my contact info. Happy to talk more if you have time or desire.
That's great.
Josh, you send us a copy of the slides.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
That was
Yep.
super cool.
The one thing while you're thinking of questions that I will throw in is, because I don't want people to experience whiplash. Act 181, it anticipated more Act 250, right? More jurisdiction, and then they repealed that, like, no more tier 3, no more road rule. But it also felt like forest fragmentation was a real problem in Vermont, or was becoming a problem. And so it also created a new review criteria nested within the 10 review criteria that I mentioned, specific to that. And that did not get repealed. So what's called criterion 8C, or forest block and habitat connector criteria, is going to be a new criteria under the Act 250 review protocol, starting on January 1st of 2028. So they've given my board a bit more time to sort of figure it out. But the idea behind it is that if you are proposing a development that's gonna reach far into the woods, you're gonna have to demonstrate how you're not having an adverse impact on forest blocks and habitat connectors. And we may make you cluster. We may make you not have, you know, a 3,000 foot road. We may make you do something a little different. But the rules haven't been written and our board has to do that over the next year or so. That does not increase any jurisdiction, so no project that would not require an Act 250 permit will have to worry about that. And no new projects are gonna need an Act 250 permit because of this review criteria. It's just a new review criteria for any project that triggers Act 250, for the status quo triggers. But just, you know, you're gonna hear about this probably in September, from me. And we're gonna have public meetings, and I guarantee you, there's gonna be some folks who are gonna be like, wait a minute. That was a bait and switch. I thought we repealed all that new stuff. Well, this is something that did not get repealed. It's not new jurisdiction, but it is a new criteria.
Yeah.
Quick municipal question. So if municipalities ultimately considering maybe tier 1A, is there any reason they shouldn't opt right into tier 1B today or as soon as?
None whatsoever. What I like to tell all of our communities I talk to is there's no downside to tier 1B.
Okay.
Everybody should go for it. It's totally opt-in. The legislature did not want municipalities to feel like they had to do it. And there are some municipalities, believe it or not, that see Act 250 as a really important backstop because their municipality is small and they don't have the resources to review large development. Right, it's like the zoning mechanism in their community. So it's totally opt-in, but my perspective is if you have municipal zoning and you feel comfortable with your development review, this is just a partial Act 250 exemption for housing projects 50 or smaller, like, there's no downside. Rutland is the one municipality, Rutland City is the one municipality that has opted not to apply for tier 1B because they just want to do tier 1A. The moment that their regional plan is adopted, they want to apply for that, and I was like, you guys should just, it's okay, tier 1B, then tier 1A, but everybody else, yeah, I'm telling them, just go for tier 1B, there's just no downside.
Is that, like, do we have to affirmatively opt in or?
Yeah,
Yeah. okay.
yeah.
We're gonna be in touch.
Yeah, there's a resolution, we have a template
Oh,
already.
great, okay.
We're not
Yeah,
too close to be worried yet.
yeah, no, we'll be.
Yeah, they're busy with their maps.
We have a map.
So, yeah, I don't wanna cut off, Alex, and if there's more in particular, but I would like to just have Christian just share a really quick update on where
Sure, I'll
the
give you a
future
quick
land
update.
use, and I do wanna say that there's information in the staff report about the status of the regional plan, as well as a link to the future land use map viewer that CVRPC
Yeah, we just
has.
really don't like their viewer. It's all about UI for us. No, we have a pretty crude viewer up, but this is where the sort of the until we submit, which should be middle of next week. This is where our map is living. So you begin to get a pretty good early idea. Nice thing is you can hop in and comment, so you can zoom into you can zoom into wherever in the valley and say
Sorry, I was trying.
pick a parcel, any parcel, and
Where's the?
How about where we're sitting?
Where's the?
Yeah,
oh, where's it located? You can link it right from the front page of our webpage.
Okay.
It's not super easy, but there is a link that says regional plan right on the front of our website on kind of like the news feed. Click onto that, and then you're gonna see all the materials around the regional plan. I think it's the fourth one in the 26 regional plan update is the map. And we also have the housing targets in there. We have the plan itself, which for us is a redux of our 2016, while we continue making the updates to our new plan, which will probably be.
So we must be in the red, right?
Yes,
Deep
yeah.
Magenta.
So that's a village center. And then what appears pinkish, that would then be the surrounding village area, as we were talking about last time, they're kind of buddies.
so this is the neighborhood development area?
That was the neighborhood.
It-
It's
it-
not the same
yeah.
geography as the neighborhood development area. It's fairly close though. One area where you'll see, maybe it separates from it, and we are having some trouble with that dark green is called the conservation layer. We're having some problems where it's being drawn above the underneath classes.
Yeah.
But the only differences I think is actually as you go further to the south, I think we've drawn some areas that are in the neighborhood development area as conservation because that is flood flood hazard area or river
Mhm.
corridor area.
Which I believe were cut out
Of the neighborhood development.
of the
area, it's possible.
NDA.
It's been-
Because the NDA, because the neighborhood development area in Waitsfield is 2 years old.
Yeah,
Or so, and there were requirements to cut out
Mhm.
a variety of things.
yeah.
And so you said, so you, people are people going on and commenting on this?
Yeah, so on the, I think if you just click on a spot. Does that allow you to do it?
So this is,
No, that's just giving you the
Cool.
feedback. I guess maybe you hit feedback. Yeah, that's it. You hit feedback and then you drag your cursor over the map and now you click.
got it.
And you can compliment what a lovely pink that
Yeah,
is
yeah,
or whatever. You know, Just blame it all. And it's all anonymous unless you want to sign it from Josh.
Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing a big piece of water here, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll be submitting this next week, although I do want a screenshot of the map the way it currently is.
I went to the state page and I was sitting there looking, I was waiting for it to load because there was this just giant black hole in the dead center. And I thought it was just having trouble loading that.
Nope.
It dawned on me that I was looking at.
We'll be submitting our pre-application next week, so we're kind of going on an intense roadshow through July, gonna come out to all your towns, make your public comment, say, hey, here are the materials, here's your next steps, here's your to-do list, here's our number if you have more questions. But just to do sort of that education, so you guys understand where we are, we're looking to adopt middle fall, so we really have until about October. Actually, less time is probably like September before when we'll stop making any changes, because we'll have to warn our final hearing. 60 days with the LURB starting.
Yeah, it's an interesting process and it's very Byzantine, but there's logic to it in that Christian has to get your input. And to do that, he needs to show you a draft plan and these draft maps. And then take your input and potentially modify the plan or the maps, and then have another public hearing to say, this is the final version. Did we get it right? Does it look good? And so that's a really important process. But what Act 181 did is say, hey, there's this independent board that in the end is going to have to approve what you came up with. So get them the draft before you even go to the first public hearing. So that if you really screwed something up badly, that you're gonna hear about it from that board. And then you can walk into your first public hearing and say, hey, we got this feedback from this board. We know we're probably gonna have to make a few changes here, but what do you think? You know, Waitsfield, did we get your mapping right? And all of that can come together and they can coalesce it.
Along those lines, let's say Waitsfield comes back. I don't want to pick floodplains because maybe there's a walkability question. There's a little area where on the edge of town, maybe the town says, hey, we've been planning development here. We'd really love it, region, if you included this in one of our downtown or growth areas. After we've had this LURB pre-review, is there a communication option to come back and say, hey, this is my commission agrees with the town and they really want this section in
Yes.
there? Is there an opportunity to come back before we submit that final
Yes,
plan?
Yep.
So we don't get a surprise at the end.
yes.
Okay.
So very, very briefly, your shepherd is Brook Dingledine.
Yeah.
Once you have your pre-application review with us,
Yeah,
we'll give you a formal, way too long response letter
Yeah.
with all sorts of comments.
so,
And then if you have any questions, easy ones, you just talk to Brooke and she helps iron them out. But we've had multiple commissions come back to us from sort of a more formal conversation of like, you gave us this feedback and Waitsfield really doesn't want to do what
Yeah.
you're saying, like, and here's why. And we'll give you more feedback.
feedback, so we don't get those surprises in the final.
That's the hope. Yeah,
I like
that's
that.
the hope.
All right, well,
You know, another question, just to jump off what Christian just mentioned. So how final is the final? In other words, 2028, when that final map is done, things are never static.
Right.
Things
Right, of
change in the town. You may have another plot that now you want to add to
Yes.
1B.
Good
Is there a
question.
mechanism?
There is, yeah, so the statute was smart enough to include provision for a minor map amendment. With the idea that, yeah, communities are updating their plans and their zoning all the time. So depending on the size of the change, there's a shortcut to get through this process at a later date. If it's a sizable change, then it requires going
And then-
through the formal process and updating the regional plan. But remember, regional plans are only, good for 8 years. So we are constantly updating both municipal and regional plans and, yeah, there's a mechanism to do it. And there is at least a mechanism for a shortcut for small potatoes.
And didn't they also include in 325 a way for communities to get tier 1B if they aren't quite ready yet? But don't want to wait 8 years, I think, CT told us that the other day.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Like I said, I think, particularly in the kingdom, which is, I'm the shepherd for the, Northeast Kingdom's regional plan. And, it's remarkable how many communities up there do in fact have zoning. I was surprised. I'm like, nobody has zoning in the kingdom, but they do have, a lot of them do have zoning. But a lot of those communities don't have subdivision regs. You need both to be eligible for tier 1B. I fully anticipate a bunch of communities up there enacting new subdivision regulations in the next couple of years to get that tier 1B. And the moment they do that,
Yeah.
there's an application process and they can come and get that.
Opt in at that point.
Yeah.
Great.
All right. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you. Oh, don't want to cut you off.
No, I asked it. It was that last question. Awesome.
All
Got
right.
all my homework done.
So you've got my contact info. Josh will circulate the slides. Don't hesitate to reach out. I am a bureaucrat. I cop to that, but I pick up my phone. So just call me or email me. I'm happy to chat further. And if it's, Christian regional plan related, I might push you over to him and or my colleague Brooke. But if it's just sort of general Act 250 stuff, feel free to reach out. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Appreciate it.
That's great.
Yeah.
Huge help.
I have to say goodnight. I'm heading to Lebanon, New Hampshire.
Oh.
Not
A long way.
Not going or anything like that.
No matter what, safe travels.
Yeah, my wife, is coming back from Utah and my daughter, is not gonna drive till Lebanon. She didn't, adhere to her promise to, not have beers and blossoms, so.
I know.
You're doing the good work.
Joking the local economy. Good night, guys, thanks.
Well,
All right. Our next item on the agenda is an update on the well-being survey. So Franny.
Yes, I'll get the somewhat bad news out of the way. Sam remains the champion of the well-being survey. I did not beat Sam's number of 573 survey responses. However, I did get quite close. I received, or rather the planning district received, 539, 504 of those were electronically submitted, and actually 35 were submitted physically, so by paper. I did a workshop with the Mad River seniors that was quite successful. They all very willingly filled out the survey and received a short presentation from me about our efforts, and they were thrilled that we were interested in hearing from them. So that was really lovely to participate in that. I don't believe other efforts had as many paper surveys, at least
You're correct.
that's what you relayed to me. I also wanted to note in past iterations of the survey, about 30 to 50 responses were from outside of Woodsfield, Warren, or Facein. With this year's iteration, only 24 were beyond the boundaries of the planning district's jurisdiction. I thought that was interesting. I will say I really focused my efforts on Waitsfield, Warren, and Facein. I know Amy, for example, put some flyers up in Moortown. I did not do that because, the survey was geared towards the 3 towns and I wanted to maintain that focus.
And there was a little bit of a dialogue on social media with people commenting on our posts about this survey and saying, what about Moortown, for instance, and why are we not included? And you're being exclusionary, you're not including the entire valley, and you're using the name valley and it's not including us. So we managed that dialogue and found a way to respond respectfully, but also clearly about the Matter Valley Plan District was created in 1985 and funded by that geography as well as Shoalbush. So
And that's actually a good segue. So the most significant piece of advertising that we did for the survey was a Facebook ad, which is where these comments transpired. We spent $287 on this Facebook ad, and it received 826 clicks and 40,000 views, which is more than I was expecting. Really got some traction. So I would definitely do that again in the future. I think we did 3 press releases to the Valley Reporter. We ended up receiving in terms of a gender breakdown. This does not include the paper survey, so this is just electronic responses. 65.2% of responses came from females, 34% male, which is a 3% increase from the last time the survey was administered. Not quite what I was hoping, but it is an increase, which I'm quite happy about. From the electronic responses, we got fairly, what would be the right word? Representative results from each town. So about 37% of the survey respondents were from Waitsfield, about 39% of the valley is Waitsfield. Is that a correct way to say that? I think.
Yeah.
Pick up what I'm putting
Right.
down here.
Yes.
I'll have a more formal population, thank you, coming up in the next few months, but I did want to provide you all with some initial results. 31% of survey respondents came from Warren, about 37% of the valley's population is located in Warren. And Facein was the most representative. 24% of the responses were from Facein, and 24% of the Matterhorn Valley's population lives in Facein. Huge shout out to Maddie. She did promote the survey, I think multiple times in the Facein listserv, and I think it clearly worked, which is really wonderful. Does anybody have any particular questions about the survey administration for me?
So it closed last Friday.
I guess I didn't include that.
It ran for
41 days.
41 days. Yeah. And so the plan is to crunch numbers and have a larger presentation at our next meeting. And based on the feedback and the dialogue that we have about that and any remaining questions, the next step would be then to craft the final report for this project, but we didn't want to get too over our skis before we have the time to analyze and the time to have a dialogue with the steering committee to see if there's any questions or blind spots or other things that require a little bit more attention in the way that we're analyzing this work. So more to come.
More to come.
I just want to say 2 things. Like, I don't think we should change the time of year that we do it, but it is a really busy time of year, like when we come back from spring break, and it's just.
There's a lot of demands on people's time.
Well, I'm really glad you said that because we did release the survey, I believe, 2 weeks later than we typically would, because I started in February. And
It's all good. But, and then, the change from 2024, when the last survey happened, to now, I mean, I am noticing just even more insane amount of emails just in life, and it's hard to break through. There's just a lot of electronic noise in people's lives, so it continues to be a challenge for everybody out there. Surveys like this, political campaigns, businesses, like, just send more. Or I think the ones who send smarter are doing better, but like, it's just hard to break through, and so I think you should give yourself a break. It's hard to get people to be like,
thank you.
I'm gonna spend 20 minutes. So I think to get that many people is great.
And I will say some feedback that we have received, just verbally from people who took the survey, is that it's very long and it does take a good 10 minutes to thoughtfully respond to, which, I mean, it's provides a lot of information, but that is a barrier for some folks, I think.
Plus you have to be like.
Yeah, add a couple minutes of a little self-reflection.
Right.
But ultimately, this is, representative once again of about 10% of our population.
Right.
And I think getting a 10% response rate on any type of survey is pretty significant. And how many cookies did you bake? And how many times were you at Huron? And how many farmers markets did you go to?
Agree.
Yeah, so Franny spent a lot of time outside of regular work hour, really hitting the street and engaging with people, which I think is also a really great way to get to know this community and starting in February, and being part of this process. So anyway.
It was a lot of fun and I'd love to do it again. And I learned so much from the process. So thank you all for giving me your blessing to move forward on this project.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Any questions? All right.
Franny, I've done a lot of surveying in 22 years at the community level in Heinsberg. That's a phenomenal response rate. You
Thank
should be really, really proud of that. That's great.
Thank you.
I'm a Chittenden County person and I talk to a lot of planners up there where it's a lot of people, a lot of big population, and even in communities with double the number of people, they get way less responses than you guys. So
That's great to hear.
very good. Yeah, very good.
Thank you. You.
Thank you. Yeah, that's good to hear. I think it's helpful for us to remember, that we're doing a good job. So the number in a vacuum is hard to assess.
Yeah,
Totally.
So,
good.
yeah, really valuable work. Our next item is a proposed amendment to our bylaws. I'm sure everyone spent a lot of time reading through this. I also don't think we circulated a red line, so.
Well, I attempted
Okay.
to provide the Google Doc version in the
Oh, okay.
in the actual email
In
that
the
I sent
email,
out,
okay.
and that was the red line. I could not
Okay.
export
We
a
couldn't actually
track
get it to
changes
show
version
in-
into PDF.
Got it.
And so what I included as the attachment for this meeting in the meeting repository is this version, but it doesn't show any of the changes or the comments, which is super frustrating.
Yeah, so not very helpful.
No,
Um,
and I'll go down to where the,
I can speak to sort of the overarching goal of what this amendment is meant to do. Without getting into too much specifics of individual word changes, but the basic idea here was, first, there was, as those of us who were here for our first, or our, I guess, second meeting this year, our organizational meeting, there was ambiguity about whether we had to independently elect officers and an executive committee, or if the officers automatically formed the executive committee. So the first order of business in this amendment is to clarify that in fact, it's just officers. The officers serve as the executive committee. We don't have to have separate elections for both. So that was the real driving force behind why we made changes to begin with.
and if I can just say
Yeah.
one thing, and in this, because there was a conflict in the bylaws, the bylaws actually said both things. And the intention was that the executive committee are the officers. And so it said both in the bylaws, and we essentially clarified the conflict.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, so you can see the deletion in part C there says following election of officers, steering committee shall nominate representatives to serve the executive committee. Further up, I believe, where we talk about the officers, it says
Yeah.
the officers shall serve as the executive committee.
Yeah,
So,
so,
there was that direct conflict between.
yeah, the officers of the steering committee shall constitute the executive committee. So it was very
So-
clear there, and it was absolutely unclear here.
It's very, very much contradictory. So we wanted to remove the contradicting language. I don't think anyone believes we should have two separate bodies that are separately elected. Doesn't make any sense, especially given the size. So that's how we propose to resolve that. I think there were some sort of minor language issues that were addressed. And then a couple other quick items that we addressed were what constitutes a quorum. For purposes of amending the bylaws, I believe is where we changed this.
Yeah, that's
Further down.
That's further down. Actually, let's quickly chat about the signatory.
And
piece.
then, yeah, so the signatory section here is part of the powers of the executive committee. And on review of this, we're pretty sure this was just a drafting error when this was put together. What this originally said, what's been struck out there, is that the executive committee would be responsible for approving contracts. And that the executive committee would be approving payments that are outside of an approved budget, work plan, or contract. The issue there, I mean, it's twofold. One is that we don't really think that power should be held just by the executive committee. That really should be a steering committee-wide responsibility and power. The other is that there is a question under state law about whether that delegation of power to the executive committee would actually make the executive committee itself a non-advisory body, which basically subjects it to greater public records law scrutiny, which would be onerous logistically and also potentially expensive because we have to host more video of the meetings and give more notice of the meetings. So it just seemed like a silly extra potential burden to put on the executive committee when the executive committee doesn't actually want that authority to begin with. So the proposal is just to change the reference to the steering committee as the responsible party for approving contracts and agreements, for allowing the officers to sign agreements and to approve any payments that are outside of the approved budget, work plan, contracts or agreements. That's the core of what we're doing. And then I think the last thing is just the quorum definition. The prior draft or the enacted version of the bylaws says that we need 5 members of the steering committee to vote for an amendment. That is what it will take to approve this amendment. In this case, we would like to change that so that the vote is not 5 members of this committee, but instead a vote of a quorum, capital Q, which we would then define the way that we actually define what a quorum is for having meetings. And that's effectively, it's a majority of all sitting members of the commission or the committee, rather, the steering committee, but requires that at least one representative from each municipality is present. And so the quorum vote would be a vote that is a majority that has to include one representative from each municipality, so that we believe that when an amendment is passed to these bylaws, that it has a representative vote from the various stakeholders.
Essentially, it was written as a higher test than any other vote of the planning district, because everything was listed as a quorum, which is defined here, but then the word quorum in parentheses was the edit, so that reference.
So we can then use that further down.
Yeah.
And we do think it should be a higher, like, generally speaking, to take action, quorum is present at a meeting. A majority of those present are enough to take the action on behalf of the whole committee. So it could end up being less than a quorum, in quotes, of the committee voting to take action for ordinary matters.
Yeah.
For an amendment to the bylaws, we think it should be a higher bar. And we think the appropriate higher bar is to require that the vote be representative of all of the municipalities, plus being a majority of the membership. That also is a majority of membership, not a majority of present votes. So in order to adopt future amendments to the bylaws, if they're required, we'll have to have this higher standard. 5 was already a higher standard than a majority of those present at a quorum meeting, which could theoretically, I think, be 3.
Right.
Under the right circumstances, but I think in most cases, this means that there's going to need to be 4. I guess in all circumstances, at least 4 votes in favor, but the specific makeup is a little bit more representative now. So complicated, but I think a useful change there. So I think those are the changes.
Yeah, any questions about the changes? Because then I'll quickly talk about, or you can talk about what the process is. But anything that doesn't make sense, or like, heck no, we're not gonna vote to approve it right now. But I just want to have the opportunity to have a dialogue.
I just wanted to compliment you on a really good job.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that was very clear. So thanks.
So any amendments to the bylaw, so existing, and this is section 1002, a proposed amendment should be submitted in writing to the executive director, except for the fact I was the one who kind of started this one. The proposed amendment shall be placed on the executive committee agenda for its review prior to being placed on the steering committee agenda. Following review by the executive committee, the proposed amendment, along with any recommendations of the executive committee, shall be placed on the agenda of the next regularly scheduled meeting of the steering committee. And so we did that last week with the executive committee, and now this is this meeting. The draft proposed amendment should be discussed at the next regular meeting, which is this meeting, of the steering committee, and may be amended at that meeting. And affirmative vote of the steering committee is required to advance the agreed upon final proposed amendment. The vote must direct that the final proposed amendment be placed on the agenda of the subsequent regular meeting for a final vote. So if we all agree, we vote on moving forward, and it'll be on for our next meeting. And after the affirmative vote described in that one above, the proposed amendment shall be placed on the agenda for a final vote at the subsequent regular meeting of the steering committee. No amendment to the proposed amendment shall be allowed at the steering committee's meeting during which the final vote is taken. So any changes need to be made here. no amendments at the subsequent one. And we have to meet the rules right now, which is it requires the affirmative vote of 5 members of the steering committee in order to pass at the subsequent meeting. But at this particular meeting, all that's required is an affirmative vote of the steering committee.
So a majority of us will have to vote to move this forward, if that is what we all agree.
Is it time for a motion?
Unless there's any other questions, comments, so. Right, yeah, sure, let's move forward then with the motion to, I guess the motion will be to advance, is that what we call this?
I think in the last
yes.
sentence of C, it's, yeah,
Advance the agreed upon final proposed amendment.
but must direct that the final
Yes.
proposed amendment be placed on the agenda. Yeah, so
So,
we have to, I guess we have to direct.
yes, if someone would like to make a motion to direct that the final proposed amendment be placed on the agenda of the subsequent regular meeting for a final vote, I would entertain that motion.
So moved. Yeah. there you go.
Chuck, second?
Second.
All right. Steve, and all in favor, say aye.
All right. Aye.
Any opposed? And any abstain? All right, that is done. So we'll. put that
Just so I
on
can
the next-
clarify, the motion was by
Sorry, motion was by Chuck.
Chuck,
Chuck.
yeah,
Second by
second by me,
Dave,
and then
and unanimous.
unanimous.
Great.
Which is, what are there, 5 of us?
There are 5.
Since Paul left, that Paul's departure does not change that we have quorum,
Correct.
so we're good. Excellent. All right, so we can move forward. One thing I do want to just note about this, there is currently in place there is just sort of a perpetual, having been adopted in the past, authorization for Josh to take certain actions and commit certain amounts of funds for the organization, as I understand it. It probably makes sense after this bylaws amendment is adopted to either ratify that same language again or potentially even add a little bit to it to be very clear. I think what would be good for the organization to have is sort of an emergency authorization kind of clause that basically says, this is me spitballing. We would obviously discuss this and refine it to what people want, but I think it would make sense for us as an organization to essentially adopt some resolution that allows Josh to enter into agreements on an interim basis between meetings that would then be ratified pursuant to our changed language in 704 that talks about the steering committee being the organization that approves and authorizes execution of agreements. Because as we all know, we meet monthly at best, we occasionally miss months. And the world does not operate on a every month approval cycle. So there are going to be times when Josh needs to do things. If they're within the work plan, it's clearly within his power, but sometimes things are questionable or nearby, and we want to be sure that he's got the authority to take action as needed. But that can be after we address this. We also operated for many years without any bylaws at all, so we're making a very good progress to modernize and formalize things.
Thank you, Jonathan.
All right, that gets us through to member roundtable. So we can go around and do that quickly, 15 minutes, and we have about 15 minutes before 9 o'clock, so we're doing good. I will kick us off because I have really nothing to report. We actually did not meet this past week for the planning commission in Waitsfield. We are working very diligently towards proposing a short-term rental ordinance for the town, which I believe I don't know if we've committed, but we're intending to deliver for an early July meeting for the select board. Josh attended our most recent meeting that we actually held and gave us really good feedback on the draft that we did have. And we are working to update the draft to incorporate that and move it forward. But that hadn't happened yet by Tuesday, so we punted on our meeting until our next scheduled meeting.
I've just got a question.
Yeah.
Here. How have you folks thought about staffing?
So I don't know, Josh, if you can speak to that. I don't know. I know that the original draft of our ordinance was based on the Warren ordinance, and there's been some updates to that draft, although I think it still remains fairly similar. But I don't know if you know.
Yeah, I mean, the focus from the meeting that I attended was finishing and thinking through the ordinance as far as what to
the sort of what to be regulated. And then have a subsequent conversation about how. And obviously those things are interrelated, but trying to separate the how, what is the management? Is it in-house? Is it not in-house? To what degree? And how is that done? Understand that that's going to require a lot of work, but figure out the what first and then have the conversation of the how. And then circle back onto into the ordinance and do it at that point. So it was a little of a divide and conquer is the way that I understood was the approach.
That sounds fair. And
Because it's a lot.
yeah, and I think also there's a certain degree to which the select board is gonna have significant sort of input into that as well. You know, once this moves beyond our initial sort of ideation into the select board discussing what resources can be brought to bear to build out the infrastructure for it. I think there's a little bit of a sort of domain expertise issue there where the planning commission doesn't really have a lot of insight into the town's resources on that front. So there may be some necessary back and forth on that specific question. So that's it for me. Why don't we go this way? We never go this way.
Okay. Let's see, so Warren Planning Commission. We brought Mac Rude back one more time and he came back with more details about the Waitsfield 10 development that he did. And this is, trying to understand the model that he worked under and how we would apply that to the town garage site. Matt came in with numbers as well. I mean, he brought his spreadsheet in on what it cost him to do it, and that was super helpful. I think we're still landing on, going back to the select board and saying, hey, we really think that the town of Warren should do the PUD itself. At least I think that's the planning commission's view at this point. That does not preclude Habitat for Humanity of participating in the PUD, but we still think the model there, Mac's model looks so attractive in the way he did it. I mean, Waitsfield, you guys got he did it right. You've got a new neighborhood, you've got a community. I mean, it's everything that you want in a development like that. It targeted the right people. And so that model is very attractive to us. So we're trying to figure out, okay, how can, as a municipality, how could we do that? So we're still working with that. Mac's been super helpful with, the nitty gritty of what he went through. The other thing is we officially kicked off the town plan update and review last meeting, so that's going away. We're gonna do a deep dive on it, so we'll see what our appetite is for real edits and real substantial change. And then we'll soon be advertising what we're calling the Warren Wind Down, which is modeled after, again, the Waitsfield Roundup. And our first one is going to be targeted July 8th. So 4 days after the 4th of July, everyone's invited to the Green in the town of Warren for some music. And we'll have a couple tables there about the town garage update. I'll open up the Blair House, let people walk through that. And kids and parents, everybody's invited. So, and there'll be food and drinks served.
Excellent.
So that's all I had.
Right.
And is it WINE down?
WI,
Wind down?
no,
Okay. I'm just checking.
no, we're not going, we're not. Joel's got enough problems
Yeah.
with theme issues.
There are problems with the 4th of July theme. We have concerned neighbors who do not like the theme with the 4th of July and are upset that the Rotary, which has been doing it for 20 years, has set the theme, and by letting them do it, we are currently being silent, and we're not participating in the theme, and they're upset about that. So that's interesting. which the theme is resistance is revolutionary. And that is, people are feeling that that is a direct assault on our current government. So, the speed humps are going back in. On Main Street and, close to the intersection of Route 100. We're gonna do a demonstration on reconfiguring the entrance into the town and exit from on Route 100 and Main Street, where the north and southbound lanes are gonna get constricted a little bit so that you have to come in and take an actual right-hand turn into the town. And then there'll be another speed hump right there to really slow everybody down completely. And hopefully the set of those speed humps through the town will get everybody slow down.
And there's a specific spec on the size.
There
of
is specific
said
size, there
speed
was a
humps.
specific size, and it was disregarded when they were first put in. So
Right.
We did ask for it correctly the first time. And let's see, the town garage foundation where we found the dump, where we were digging the new footings, has been dealt with at not a exorbitant amount of cost. So that's what we're at. Yeah. Anything put in the dump? Anything put in? A concrete bridge, and it had to be ground up, a bunch of culverts and but not any contaminated soil. So
Cool.
we win there.
Make them where you can get them.
Couple of updates on Facein, and then I have a question for David, I think more specifically, and maybe Jonathan, with regard to the lot, local option tax.
Yeah.
So the updates are the construction on our two bridges has begun. They're working on them simultaneously so they can move equipment from one bridge to the other. And these are two bridges that got washed out in 2024. So the construction has begun. It's probably not gonna be until October sometime, for them to complete it. So that's the date they're giving us, and I'm hoping it's sooner than that, but I hate to think about all that time with this construction blockades up and, you know, no through traffic and all that stuff, but that's what we know so far. So that has begun. The other thing that was going on, like Warren, we're having trouble with our road crew. So we had hired somebody and didn't work out, so now we're looking for another road crew member again. So I know I'm asking the wrong body if you hear of anybody.
We are also looking for
Yeah,
one.
we'll have to arm wrestle for whoever it is. But we are looking for another road crew member. And the question though is, it came up at our select board meeting last week. We think we should get some notification to the Facein folks that are in the 05673 zip code as to what's going on.
Yeah.
But we're not quite sure what you folks had sent out and what the tax department has sent out to the businesses. So
Tax department sent everything.
they did,
Yeah.
but just the businesses, not the residents.
Not the residents.
Yeah. So we, being us, probably communicate something to the residents, right? And is it that the 9-digit zip code should direct the tax department to the right?
Yeah, I thought there were updated things that they had put together, but I'll look into it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's talk, because we have 12 days.
Yeah, that's what we were thinking too. So if you do have something, that'd be very helpful, and then we'll send something out on our broadcast list to the folks that are on that, and at least give them a little bit of forewarning. So that was it.
Yeah, we were gonna just update our webpage on our municipal site about that it's now or going into place on July 1st, so.
Yeah.
I'll get in touch with you.
Okay. That's it.
Sure. In case, I don't know if any of y'all have plans expiring, this year or next year. But they've been given an extension to the end of next year. We have a municipal plan expiring, in the next 18 months.
Not for a while.
Yeah,
Okay.
but Facein and Warren's is,
We expire in 2027, I believe.
All right, well, now you've been given to the close of 2027, and that was under S 225. Because regional plans are being adopted at the end of 26, so let's give them time to integrate anything they need to. Second piece I wanted to share is we got funding through the CDBG-DR, Community Development Block Grade Disaster Recovery Grant, do flood hazard modeling for the whole central Vermont region, including Mad River Valley. Most of it's going to be stitching together existing resources. We're also working with UVM to do some sort of experimental analysis on that prioritization. We think it'd be a good tool for select boards as you all are thinking of investments to mitigate risk going forward. What's the highest ROI? How can we spend our limited money most effectively? So we'll be in touch. As I said, we're working with Friends of the Winooski River, Friends of the Mad River. They'll be doing some engagement with towns as a subcontractor under it. So that should be beginning to spin up over the next 6 months. Final thing regional plan coming around. I want to do just sort of an elevator pitch for everybody. We're going to try to be meeting with your planning commissions first. This really is a planning discussion, and we hope that they would be taking recommendations to select boards who will ultimately need to act on that tier 1B opt-in. But we'll obviously be there ready to stand hand in there, shoulder to shoulder with on any meetings you need, regional staff. And that's what I got.
Thank you.
Right, but I just wanted to acknowledge, our longtime road commissioner, Charlie Goodman died on Friday. So I just wanted to let everyone know about that. He was pretty integral to all the stuff we have going on our roads, and, so it's very sad. And I'll deal with that. And that presents a slight additional challenge for our town garage process. We lost our, I don't know if everyone has been aware, we lost our designer firm. They just closed their doors and laid everyone off about 3 weeks ago. Luckily, most of the work was done, but we need to get someone back on board and then rebid that project or bid it out. So we're doing that, and we're working on both our bridge repair issues with RFPs and then there's big things going on, and then the wind down is happening, and the Roundup revival is also scheduled now. So we're back on after a couple of years off, back on the summer party circuit. July 2nd is going to be the first, I believe, Roundup revival on the green in town. We have some more permits to issue, I believe, on Monday night, but I wanted to give a heads up that is likely going to happen.
And it'll be taking place in Irisville.
Yeah, Irisville at the Mad River, but like where the farmer's market is. And
So it's moved. It's been moved.
it's been moved. There were some issues which we don't need to go into with the riverfront site. This has buy-in from all the businesses in the area, and Sugarbush is participating. Or they signed up to participate with some drinks, and I know that the select board that has that on its agenda on Monday night. Anyway, so I don't want to get like too far ahead of it, but since it's July 2nd, hopefully just before our next meeting, so I wanted to mention it.
Thank you. The last thing to discuss is just our upcoming meeting schedule. It's summer, or will be by the time we meet again. We're a few days away still. Historically, we have not met every month in summer. I think we've typically taken August off. So there is some discussion to be had about this year, whether that makes sense. I know some members have difficult Julys, so I kind of wanted to just read, the room a bit on the preference for a July meeting versus an August meeting, if anyone has any strong preference for one or the other, or strong dispreference for one or the other.
What would those 2 days
So
be?
the
apologize,
third
guys.
Thursday in July is the 16th. And in August, it's the 20th, so 7/16 and 8/20.
I won't be able to make it on the 20th.
You won't?
I could do it by Zoom, but I won't be here.
Okay.
Zoom is always an option. So,
7:16, or
yeah. I think I recall that Dave might have a problem with that one.
No.
But,
for the steering committee, I'm good. It was the.
oh, the executive committee, okay.
It's the,
We can have it right
we're gonna be gone the week after. 4th, but the steering committee on the 16th, I'm good.
Okay.
I'd rather have a July meeting than.
I say, the folks generally rather do July and then take August off than the reverse.
Yes.
All right, why don't we stick to the tradition then? We'll do that. So our next meeting will be on July 16th. At the typical time, 7 PM here. And then we will not meet in August, and then we'll reconvene in September. But that's the right way to do it. So with that, we get a motion to adjourn. Don't all jump at once.
Make a motion to adjourn.
And a second? All in favor? All right,
Aye.
thank you so much.
All right, thanks, Sean.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you.